Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Adi Achint. As you can see, I have me, Mr. Sree Iyer from P Gurus, who's going to throw a lot of internal light as to what is actually happening with this bank thing in the US. Sir, first and foremost, thank you so much for joining me and welcome to the show, sir.
My pleasure, Adi, and it's always a pleasure to be on your channel. And my greetings to all your viewers. Viewers, on behalf of Adi, I request you to refer this channel to your family and friends. Adi is doing wonderful work, and he has found himself a very nice niche where he brings some really good experts. So it's every minute that you listen to his videos, it's time well spent. That I really, really would encourage and urge all of the viewers who are watching this video to, subscribe to Adi's channel. He really deserves 10 times the viewership that he is getting right now. Go ahead, Adi.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Sir, I want to talk about what's actually happening. And this banking thing just came out of the blue. We knew that the Western markets and the Western economies were taking a bit of a beat, uh, a little more since the war began. And but this whole thing was a little weird the way it opened out and the way it is being handled. At the preface, so what is the feeling amongst the people in the US? Because that's where this whole thing is actually taking place.
People are concerned. They're not scared yet, but people are concerned. The normal person rarely keeps, that high a balance in banks. You may have 100K, 200K. And from the 2008 experience, many people are experienced enough to say, okay, I'm going to, distribute my risk. They'll have two bank accounts in one bank. So let's say if you have two bank accounts in one bank and you have accounts in two banks, that is four banks. That is like 250K. Let's say you are insured up to $1 million. you know uh, Adi, US is a spending economy. They spend way beyond their means, and many people, they max out on their cards. What by maxing out, what I mean is, the first card they'll get, it'll have a $25,000 spending limit. They'll buy up to $25,000. They have no intention of paying the principal. You have to have a minimum payment that is typically $25, and that interest will be like 17%. So in his lifetime he'll never be able to pay that card. What happens is, seeing the guy paying so much, taking so much debt, the second credit card company will come and give him similar terms. A third one will give him 50,000. Pretty soon he's feeling like he's a millionaire because he has maxed out all these cards, but he has no intent of paying at all. But he's not bankrupt because he's paying the minimum payment, right? So this kind of spending economy that US has really turned the whole thing upside down. People, believe it or not, they even lease their phones. Like, for example, if you want to get a good iPhone, right, that is like 11.99, $12.99. So people will say, okay, I'll take it on a lease, 36 months. In 36 months, this phone also will be obsolete. By the time that comes through, they'll keep paying the lease amount, which is not the same as buying it. It's just like a glorified rent, but you can take some expense out of it. Then at some point, then they'll say, I want to upgrade. So you'll take that thing. Here's a jugaad kiya, or it just, this is how people are living their lives. Same thing with housing, same thing with car, same thing with everything else. So, in terms of most people, their individual debt is quite high, especially after the COVID, when people are forcibly, staying at home and not doing much. But you have to eat, you have to spend, and that's what ended up, clearing out their, individual bank balances. Um, at the same time, what these regional banks have seen is that many people, at least during COVID time, made a lot of money. Adi, money, like mind blowing money. Lot of scams. People were saying that, oh, I have to feed this kitchen, that kitchen. They got a lot of money. No questions were asked. No audits were done. Suddenly they were sitting on a pile of cash. And many of them, when they saw these interest rates going quickly up at 5%, they said, well, let me just, invest it in a bank which was going to guarantee me 5% interest rate instead of putting it into a new startup company. So the people in Silicon Valley Bank, that's where the maximum noise happened. Most of the money that was at risk was the money of venture capitalists. And these people had put in millions. See, the capitalization, the deposit that that bank had was 280 billion, 280. to tell you the reality, Silicon Valley Bank used to be like a hole in the corner kind of bank in Bay Area. I mean, I've lived here many years. I've seen this bank grow. It was a niche bank that would help startups raise funding at a uh, critical phase of their growth, and then they'll go IPO or something like that, and they would pay back Silicon Valley Bank. It was a startup company's bank. How did it go from there to become a $280 billion? Is because many venture capitalists, many high net worth individuals put their money in there. These people also donate to the Democratic Party. When they saw that their money was about to go up in smoke, they basically called all their favors and said, first, make sure that this is saved. The other banks, I don't think, have this amount of risk, but at the same time, they're also vulnerable. The reason the other regional banks are vulnerable is because they were drunk on low interest rate, like zero point 0 to 0.25%. Okay. And suddenly the thing went up to 4%. Now, they had taken a lot of assets which were assuming that the interest rate, interbank interest rate would be very low, 0.25 to maybe they thought that it might go up to 1%. You got to realize that from 2003 onward, US interest rate, bank rate is either less than or around zero. Okay, suddenly it has gone up to 5% because Powell has been trying to fight the inflation. The inflation happened because of printing of notes. The printing of notes happened because of COVID. You see how it goes on. So this is where the problem is. They were expecting obligations to be at a very low interest rate, whereas they had to meet that they were seeing the interest rates go out of control. So suddenly, whatever they have in their assets, those things are not able to make up for what they owe to their deposit holders. So if there's any run on the bank, then suddenly they don't have the money. This is the fundamental problem. But once the Fed has now stepped in and said that we will cover them, the reason they are saying that is because they know the assets are there. There is no flaky derivatives like collateral debt obligations and things like that. None of that matter. This is just the fact that the interest rates went up too fast. At the same time, the fault of these banks is that they should have had a risk officer who could have modeled this and said, see, it didn't happen overnight. It didn't go from 0.25% to 4% in like one big jump. It was half a percent at a time. So once it crossed 1.5, and the Fed was telegraphing its intentions every step of the way. They were saying that we are fighting inflation, we are fighting inflation. So at some point, they could have stepped in and sold their assets at a slightly lower gain, and then at least made sure that they had enough liquidity. Instead, what they did was, this is herd mentality. Everybody wants to optimize profits. So everybody did the same thing. Therefore, when the crisis hits, everybody is also found to be not wearing any clothes. This is really the problem. What happened to the biggest banks, the JP Morgans, the JP Morgan, there is the Bank of America, Citibank, and Wells Fargo. These banks have so much money that they don't have any problem at this time. In fact, the money that is being taken out of the smaller banks is actually finding itself into these bigger banks. So those guys are becoming even more stronger. So it is just a matter of confidence. That's all. I think that will stop also. I think in US contagion is, I think, contained unless there is some other thing that I don't know of crops up. You can always expect a surprise in these things though.
That is, I think, the bottom line. Surprises are something that keep popping up. So, but the interesting thing that one can see is that the Russia-Ukraine war actually led to a lot of the inflation problems amongst the Western world. It did affect India, it did affect the rest of the eastern part of the world as well, but it's been mitigated to a large extent. Actually, everywhere that you see within Southeast Asia, India, and except I think barring Pakistan, things are pretty nominal and things are pretty normal with regards to inflation and economic pressures are concerned. It's only the West that we are seeing this, and it is again the West that was a little overactive, if I may, with regards its opposition towards the financial efforts against Russia. Do you think that had a role to play with regards to a very badly thought out financial targeting of Russia, which actually backfired onto them as well?
Mm, I don't. quite think that's what happened, Adi. What did happen was that the focus of the Biden administration has been away from China and towards Russia. Suddenly, see, now it has become in US politics, if the Democrats are in power, Russia is the enemy. If the Republicans are in power, then China is the enemy. But in truth, it is China that is actually eating India, US's lunch. So I'm independent, Adi. I'm neither a Democrat nor a Republican. But I see that it is China which does not respect United States intellectual property rights. It has never done that. So that is where the problem is, and it has been stealing intellectual property also. Even if you have a patent in China, it amounts to nothing, because in a court, all the guy who's infringing your patent needs to do is come and say, "I am sorry." No monetary compensation, no punitive damages, no nothing. What good is an apology? Nothing. He's going to close shop and go and start a new company with a new Chinese name. How the heck will we know? Right? So this is what is the respect China gives to intellectual property of other countries. And now they have become so good that some of the products they make are on par with the Western technology. So because every technology goes to development and then it starts saturating and it tapers off. Like you take a microphone, USB microphone, right? The one that you connect to your PC these days. There is only so much technology in that, Adi. After that, there is nothing left. Or a keyboard. So at that point, it's just manufacturing efficiencies that kick in, because keyboards do go bad after pounding and you wear and tear and so on and so forth. So this problem that you're saying, that whether Russia caused it, Russia could have been one of the causes. The main reason is that suddenly the Biden administration started targeting Russia and made oil the big center point, because under Obama, starting from Obama through the Trump presidency, US had become a net exporter of crude. Net exporter, not importer. They had so much shale production that they were actually exporting crude. So suddenly, when John Kerry, the climate czar, came in and he said that no more shale exploration, suddenly what happened was US had to again start importing. So this sudden change in direction forced US to look at how do we go get more oil. And the US has always been unhappy that Russia and especially Putin had been keeping the US companies out of the oil exploration of Russia. He would use them as, like, for example, to bore tunnels to get the pipelines and put the refinery and so on. But he would never allow them to own and pump crude. They could never own any oil field in Russia. So they were always looking for a reason to try and get rid of Putin so they could get their hands on those Russian oil fields. This is I think the underlying thing. See, these are all things where, Adi, if somebody is financing your campaign, that guy might say, okay, I'll do this for you and I expect this in return. Look at what Biden has done, right? Soros' pet topic is open borders. He has allowed that. Okay. Next, the arms lobby wants to sell a lot of arms. Now, suddenly, every country is in an arms race. They are happy. The petroleum producers want to make more money. Then there was a brief period when the crude just shot up from $60 a barrel to $120 a barrel. Can you imagine the kind of profits that the oil companies made? Hand over fist. So these are all check marks. I have taken so many millions from you, I give you this. And in every one of these things, you will find some sort of a kickback coming to some of the people who are making these decisions. We will know that only afterwards, because as long as they are in power, they'll make sure that nothing leaks out. For example, I'll tell you, under the vice presidency of Joe Biden, they completely liquidated a $3 billion Ukraine bank. The money came, all of the money came into two states in the United States, Texas and Georgia, if I remember correctly. And in that, Biden had a large hand to play. Till today, nobody has really found how exactly did that money come here, what happens to the depositors, and who benefited from this. And there is another company, oil company called Burisma, in which Hunter Biden was a director. What exactly did he do? And how much was the kickback for that? So there are lots of things like this. So instead of having to answer these questions, suddenly now Biden has changed the attention of people to say, oh look, the Russians are attacking Ukraine, we have to save them. But the arm Ukraine is not gaining from this. If anything, the United States is firing over their shoulders and fighting the Russians to the last Ukrainian. It's a very, very sad state of affairs.
Indeed, it is. When especially people like us, when we look at it, you wonder. I mean, has have people in Ukraine lost a nut or something? I mean, the whole world knows what's happening. I think the Americans and the Westerners also know what's happening, but it's the Ukrainians who probably have not realized it. So, having said that, domestic politics in the US is as polarized as any other democracy.
Yes.
We blame Indian politics and we say we're very polarized. Well, knock knock. Look at the US, how bad it is, and it's how the world is today. Everybody blames it on bad democracy, but that's how the trend is today. It's personal attacks, and you know, it's just bad media, and you don't sit together and stuff like that. But incidentally, the interpersonal politics with regards such a strong incident with regards to the US banking system was very mellow. There was not much of game a twist thrown by the other side or this side, or the conservatives or the neoconservatives, or the it was very quiet and silent, and that just was very refreshing
Yeah.
or weird.
Yeah, it's just a velocity of increase in rates that caused this problem. And I think the Fed realized that by adding a little bit of money at the right places, it can essentially tide over this crisis and things will become normal again. They have to do something though. They may have to raise the ceiling, or they may have to allow smaller banks to take only like maximum 2 million deposit. You put a cap on how much somebody can put in an account also. You understand what I'm saying, Adi? That way what happens is you have a lot of small accounts rather than big whale of an account. When that guy says and sits and runs the bank, he says, okay, look, I am the biggest depositor here, so I want these things done in a certain way. So I think they may have some sort of a legislation like that that might come in. Other than that, one thing that has been happening, Adi, is that the money laundering and blind trust, shell corporation movement, this has come to an all-time high, especially since the advent of cryptocurrencies. So today, opening a bank account and closing a bank account or moving money between banks of large sums is becoming really, really procedural. You have to really say why. You have to give an invoice saying that I'm paying against this invoice, and somebody will look at it closely to decide whether it is a legit uh, payment or not. For instance, let's say I'm giving you $30,000, then you have to show some work that you did for that $30,000. It cannot be like a research paper, which probably might not merit that kind of amount. It has to be like a project proposal with a lot of stakeholders, a lot of research, a lot of other material that is accompanying that. Then people can understand that yes, so much work has gone into putting together this document, and it is essentially directed at this particular problem or something like that, so that legitimacy can be checked. So there are some you know checks and balances that are being put in place. I think the main thing was the fact that whatever the rate increases that the Fed was doing, perhaps their model did not look at what happens to the banks downstream. They were just probably looking at what happens to the monetary policy and the monetary policy's effects at a macro level, not at a micro level, I think, because the Fed is known for doing a lot of modeling. Believe it or not, they have 20,000 people working at the Fed, Adi. 20,000. And the net effect is every 3 months they will decide whether the interest rate should stay same, go down, or go up. 20,000 people.
Overemployment. So, but the interesting part about, you mentioned crypto, and we had the Sam Bankman-Fried uh, incident
Right.
as well. And since then, one has noticed that the confidence within the crypto market is kind of, Binance and all these guys have lost a lot of valuation and money and stuff like that. A lot of people also claim the factor that because a lot of people are moving money within crypto, is there that kind of volatility within the monetary market in the US? because of the crypto transactions being so volatile at the moment, especially after the SBF crisis. A lot of people put that as a perspective as well towards the banks being under a certain amount of stress. Sir. How do you kind of look at it?
The crypto is sort of like a localized exchange, Adi, because what happens is a crypto to crypto transaction, as long as it is a crypto to some value, for example, a painting is worth 3 bitcoins or something like that, that doesn't really touch the banking sector. Where it touches the banking sector is I have a Bitcoin and I want to encash it because I want to use that money in dollars, for example, to buy a car or to go and buy some heavy equipment or something like that. That exchange mechanism, those things are only handled by a few entities. There are crypto exchanges that do that, and they'll collect a small commission for doing that. It is something like I have 1 lakh rupees and I want dollars for that. Then you go to the bank will compute the exchange rate and they take a small commission and they'll give you the dollars, right? So it's something like this. So that part hasn't done much damage in this current system. What has happened is the overall crypto market, like for example, the Bitcoin, which was at 50,000, it came down all the way to 18,000. Now, people are saying that, oh, the US is just printing money blindly. Therefore, they think that some of their assets should be put in cryptocurrency. And therefore, there is a little bit of demand for Bitcoin and it has crept back up to 28,000. But I agree with Warren Buffett, who said he would not buy one Bitcoin if it was sold for $25. It is just a bunch of numbers. It doesn't have an asset that backs it up. See, if I buy a dollar, right, the Federal Reserve of United States is behind it. The US government is behind it. If I buy 1 rupee note, the Indian government is behind it. You see the I promise the bearer the sum of, right? If you look at the note. So there is a government behind it. Even though it is paper money, the government is backing you. That's why when a bank fails in India, right, the people don't feel too perturbed because they know that the Indian government will step in and make good their deposits, right? So this is why the politicians always target banks. Bank ka paisa nikala, so anyway the government is always there, lender of last resort. He'll come in and put the money. Everybody is happy. These guys have taken the money and they've gone on.
I mean, we've seen episodes of that within India, multiple of them, and which are still open. That's what amazes me. That's the world will actually. How do you think the world will react? Because when I, as a novice, and I'm not into finance or anything like that, when I look at something like this happening, you kind of have a little, okay, let me shore up what I have, and that's the first reaction of anybody. And that's exactly what happened with the banks as well. When people realized, oh, something is wrong, they went and started withdrawing money, and they just didn't have anything left after that. That puts in a lot of, experts. I mean, you've understood the subject, you've understood the rates and this and that. Not the common guy on the road doesn't do that.
So the common guy goes and buys gold. Grandma's wisdom. Adi, our grandmas had the best wisdom. In fact, they were so afraid to keep their gold in their houses, they wore them.
That's the whole thing. That was my question actually. You answered it before I finished. Because the confidence level in the banking system is going to be like, yeah, you know, when this thing happened, the first thing I did was went and checked the liquidity status of the banks that I have accounts in. As a human being, I said, yeah, boss, I have little bit. I don't want to have it in this thing. That's the whole thing. Is the world going to go back to a place, because these things are, Credit Suisse is the next one in the line, which put up the red flag, and it was now of course covered and mollycoddled and stuff like that. Do you think the world will kind of shift out of a very formal sort of a banking sector with regards their tertiary savings to a more dominant gold based?
See, all through this last couple of weeks, observe the price of gold. It has been going up.
Yeah.
China has been buying up gold for a totally different reason. The reason China has been buying up gold was because the renminbi was never taken seriously by anybody. And they want to pay for their goods that they buy from other countries in RMB instead of dollars. Why? Because they spent all the dollars that they had as surplus in BRI, CPEC, Hambantota, Pakistan. I can go on, Africa, South America, everywhere they've spent the money. So now the problem for Xi Jinping is he has a very aspirational population who all want to be going from, whether they are in lower middle class, they want to come to middle class. The middle class wants to go to upper middle class. The upper middle class wants to become ultra rich. You get the idea. Everybody wants upward mobility, and for that he needs to be able to make sure that everybody's needs are served, which means that he needs to be able to give them the dollars they want. Right now there is serious curbs on how much dollars you can withdraw from China. Even American money institutions are not able to take their money out of China. Right. The reason I'm saying all this is, as much as you say that there are other alternatives to US dollar, there is still a demand for the US dollar. I'll give you another example. 65% of all paper currency of dollars printed is used outside of United States. US doesn't use dollar bills much. You go to a grocery store, you pay with your credit card, or you do some other thing. Like, for example, I have an iPhone. I can just swipe the thing, and it will transfer the money, wire transfer, like one account, like something like UPI. Right? People don't physically take dollars and go about. They feel safe with credit cards, and sometimes they don't even need a credit card. Everything is embedded in your phone. You take the phone and put it near the machine which computes the total. It automatically senses it, and then it tells you, yeah, so much money has been withdrawn from your account, all done. Now, the reason why China is buying up gold is because RMB, it was always said that the same note used to be printed 6 times, meaning like there were 6 notes with the same serial number. So people would never know how many notes they were printing. So when somebody knows this, you and I may not know this, but Saudi Arabia's finance minister, their department will know. Yeah, they have had this record of printing 6 times over. So in effect, they are overinflating their money, right? So nobody wants to take RMB for their oil. Now what China is doing is they're saying, okay, some parts you take for RMB, and then you can use that RMB to buy back goods from us. Now, Saudi Arabia may wonder, what can I buy from China? China is also trying to get into the high end. For example, they have been trying to get Elon Musk to build Teslas now in Shanghai. A Tesla built in Shanghai costs half the price to make as it does in the United States. In fact, Elon Musk has moved the complete factory of Tesla, every nut and bolt, from California, which he says is high interest, to Texas, where they have given him some dream deals. So everything has moved to Texas. They only have the nominal headquarters building in California. The entire manufacturing, all those mega cranes and all that stuff, everything is gone from here. The reason I'm saying this is because he has a problem. If he wants to be profitable, that profitability comes only from making the cars in Shanghai. And China might tell at one point of time to Elon Musk, you shall accept RMBs for your Tesla manufactured in China. Because if he says no, they'll stop, his profit pipeline. You see how they are tying each other's. Everybody is, his leg is tied to China.
One of the factors that globalization has actually brought in is the risk.
Interdependency.
Yeah, risk of interdependency, if I may actually. Thank you for
Yeah, true.
helping me out in that, sir. But glalization has actually brought us to a point where the mitigated risk of one becomes the risk of the other. And I'm
Yes,
sure
yes.
our finance ministry in India was, when this thing happened, they would have said, "Oh, let's give us what's happening." And that's a big problem, sir, because how do you, in India today, which is wanting to actually grow faster and faster and faster, these kind of events, especially the Russia-Ukraine war, was a damper economically in the beginning. Today we've stabilized and we've started, coming back into the game. How does India protect itself from these kind of global affairs, which may be of a certain reason, compounded by certain political decisions, compounded by geopolitical decisions against Russia and this and that, and probably if the Republicans come to power, is going to switch towards China. This is going to be a regular affair. How does India protect itself?
2 words: Atma Nirbharta. If you eat your own dog food, no problems. If you
Yeah.
can make what you need, no problems. And India is in that enviable stage. Apart from a few things, maybe they'll need some semiconductors because the world is becoming increasingly more electronic. India is also becoming increasingly more electronic. That's why the investment in semiconductors now in a very serious push. There is a lot of things that Modi is doing now that the fruit of which you will see only 3-4 years down the road. I may criticize him for some things, but I also tip my hat to some of the initiatives. Look, this guy doesn't have an IIT education, Adi. The guy doesn't have an IIM degree. He didn't go to Harvard. He has a basic wisdom. He has got the ear to the ground. He knows ये बिकता है, ये दिखता है, ये कुछ है, ये नहीं है. How does he get? He has developed that innate thing. Can you say that of Mr. Rahul Gandhi, who has an MPhil from some no-name university? He speaks good English, but that only gets you so far.
That's the whole thing. So, lastly, coming to the end, this has been a roundup interview. We've kind of taken up, various different situations which have been affecting the financial market. To me, sir, that's very interesting. Why? Because, and I'm going to come back to the Russia-Ukraine crisis, is because you look at Europe today. A lot of people will say that they have bankrupted themselves on this thing, and the US has made money on this. So the whole factor of the idealism of supporting Ukraine has been more towards a financial comeback for the United States. You mentioned the MIC, which is producing weapons like no business. You mentioned gas and oil supplies. Today, the Macron and Olaf Scholz about 2-3 months ago were, literally shouting at the US that you guys are selling us gas 4 times, 5 times more expensive than
Right,
what is
right.
available in the market. At the end of it, the US has gained. Right
Yes, it
now,
has.
that brings in a little bit of a nasty taste in the throats of the Europeans, in the throats of the Japanese, the South Koreans, who look at it and say, "Listen, we've taken a beat in terms of everything. We've put out our money and stuff like that, and all you guys are doing is printing more and just getting it done. No problem. Let's just do it." And there is a printing problem within the US. It's not as extreme as some conspiracy theories come out to be, but there is a little bit of an issue right there. How do you think this is going to open out with regards to confidence within the US markets and the confidence within the US standings? It's not going to
I
go away, but
No, it's not going to go away. But what you will start seeing, I think it is already happening, it is just not being advertised loudly, is that the euro is also printing a lot. Just like whenever the US does it, the euro will do it. The loser in this is the British pound because it doesn't belong to that big crowd. If it had also taken euro as its currency, it would be also a benefactor because the combined euro can stand up to the US dollar. By itself, the pound cannot. It's no longer the currency of the world, right? So UK is getting it from both sides. They have broken their bridges with the EU, Brexit, so and so on. So they don't like them. On the other side, they can't print notes freely. They don't have any technology right now, except for one technology company, Rolls-Royce, which makes specialized engines, except for one chip company, ARM, and ARM again is spread so much across the world. I can't say that ARM is a UK company. It's a Cambridge research company, and there are a few niche companies like that came out of research that takes place in Cambridge and Oxford. But other than that, UK doesn't really have a lot of technology today, and therefore a lot of power. UK is going to be the one that is going to suffer the most, which is why they are trying to do this FTA, free trade agreement. But before they do any of that stuff, they need to tighten their illegal immigration policy. They need to make sure that they can track their expenses. Their expenses need to come down by like 30-40%. Right now, any illegal person, if he manages to land on the shores of UK, he is given basic living needs: free hospital, free shelter, and free food to some extent, and you can live on dole, which is why you see all these problems that they have now. Once somebody gets used to getting paid without doing work, what are they going to do? They just go and try to invent something and say, oh, this is not right, they're not letting me practice this. I mean, when you are with the Jones, you have to do what the Jones do, not the other way around. And this cycle has to be broken, and it has to be done for the entire Europe. US hasn't suffered much, but it is beginning to suffer. You saw all this critical race theory, and now this caste discrimination things. These are all offshoots of that problem again. But I think US will quickly fix this thing. Always US will let something grow, but then they'll quickly turn around and fix it too. They have that capability. Other countries don't do that fast enough.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree with you, sir. I mean, I'm a firm believer of the factor that the US has this innate capability of self-correcting, and they don't qualm with regards to criticizing themselves when
Yeah, yeah.
something.
I have seen engineers take on the CEO of the company.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
say, listen, I know my job. Don't tell me what I should be doing and not be doing.
No,
And
that's
they will
fair.
do it in a board meeting. It's the CEO will have to really think twice. Why is this guy coming back and pushing back so strongly, you know?
No, no, that's there, sir. Even at the, I mean, you look at the wars in Iraq and stuff like that. It's being openly criticized. Of course, political circles don't talk about it, but people do know what happened. Uh, and they have that innate capability of self
Yes,
correction, and I'm just
yes,
waiting for
yes.
that self correction with regards to Ukraine, because the day that happens, a lot of stuff will again fall into place. But your observation about Europe and UK is absolutely, bang on, and that's where the issue comes into place, that one part of the world is suddenly going to take a speed breaker sort of a thing in their pathway. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And what you see is complete chaos with regards to the future plan. Everybody's thinking 3 months, 6 months, this winter, next winter. I mean, the only few countries that are thinking long term is actually in the global south.
Yes. You see, one of the interesting thing is the projection for 23, 24, the next couple of 18 months or 24 months. If you look at the amount of growth in the net growth in the world in terms of dollars or something like that, let's say, because dollar is still the standard currency, let's say there is going to be growth in the world. Let us say that is $100 billion, just a number. Fully 27% of that is going to come from India.
Oof.
27. So $1 in $4 of growth in the next 18 to 24 months is going to come out of India. I would not be surprised if India becomes the eighth member in the G7 and G7 becomes G8 come May.
He's been invited
Yes,
and accepted.
yes,
Yesterday in the evening, the report came out. So
right, right.
Uh, that's something interesting. Sir, thanks so much. This has been a, I'd say we've kind of covered a nice geopolitical avenue aspect of the financial issues that the world is facing. We've talked through Russia, we've talked through China, what's happening within the US with regards to the little politics and political games that they play. Just a parting note, sir. What's up with Trump, sir? I mean, what they're gonna is Trump equal to Imran Khan, or is Imran Khan equal to Trump?
Neither. I think Trump might get arrested, and if he does get arrested, and if it is proven in a court what his crime is, I think that would put pay to his presidential aspirations. He cannot become president again, and he would be the first president in the history of United States to be jailed. And it all involves something about a 2006 case where there was a porn star who Trump promised, she says, that he would give her a role in. He had a series called, he used to say, "You are fired" at the end,
Apprentice.
Apprentice. It ran
Apprentice.
for several years. So he told her that he would find her a slot in that, and of course she slept with him, and then he reneged, and that's where the problem happened. And I think she has some evidence, I guess. So he settled with her through his lawyer, and the lawyer paid her the money. And then once he became this was before he became president in 2016. Once he became president, he used some companies, some made up some stories, and paid back his lawyer Michael Cohen. That he made good the amount that he had paid to this lady called Stormy Daniels. I think that's her porn name. I'm not sure what her real name is. So this is where the whole thing is hinging on, because Michael Cohen was imprisoned, and I think now he may turn against Trump. And that is the evidence that the Manhattan District Attorney is relying on to put Trump behind bars. So we have to wait and see. See, the Federal Election Commission looked at this case and did not think that there was grounds for acting against Trump. That time, it was Trump was just a contestant. He was not the president. I'm talking about 2016 September timeframe, September or October, a few weeks before the election.
Mhm.
You see what I'm saying? So this, what is it that this guy, this Manhattan district attorney have? By the way, he's a Soros appointee.
Ah,
So there's another subplot here. So we don't know if he's going to somehow manage to convince a jury that this is what Trump did wrong. Then Trump could go to jail, even if it's for 24 hours. I don't think in US you can't get bail in 24 hours. They'll put you in jail on Friday. The minimum time is 96 hours or 72 hours. You can't get it so easily. So that would be it. That would
oh,
pay. That would be the end of presidency for Trump.
he'll come out with a vengeance if that happens.
It is. It is a vengeance. Yeah. Because these
No,
people know that if Trump is in the field, it will be very difficult for them to beat him.
yeah, they do this to him, he's gonna get after them with a vengeance. So there's gonna be an
Well,
open war.
yeah. So he might close ranks with Ron DeSantis and say, okay, I'll support you quietly, but then he would run the presidency because that's what they are saying now that Obama is still running this
Yeah,
presidency.
this is
So,
Obama 3.0, sir. Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
Sir, thanks so much. It's always a pleasure talking to you, and getting an insight into what's happening in our very important partner in the US. Uh, Although there are loads of differences, but the similarities actually make do for the good that is happening between both the countries. So a lot of people do point fingers at the CIA and the FBI and this, that, or conspiracy, this, that. But on the ground level, one must understand it's these two countries that actually are going to take the world forward in terms of a global world order, and that's the reality of the day. So it's you may like them or not, but you got to work with them, and that's something that India must understand. Thanks so much as always, sir, and see you next time for another incisive open heart surgery into another subject. Jai Hind.
My pleasure, Adi. Jai Hind, Namaskar, and wish you all the best.
Thank you.